In this lecture, we're going to study some basics of networking in Java, and thereafter we're going to see how can we establish a connection between a client and a server in the network. You must understand that the most important reason why Java is considered as the language for network programming is because it has into it a package called as java.net, and this java.net package, it is very powerful. It houses all the different classes and interfaces which are very powerful in order to have this client server interaction on the internet. Before we actually begin, let us see some networking basics. Now we start with a term called as socket. Now socket is nothing but it is one endpoint of two-way communication link between two programs running on a network. Okay, so which simply means that if you have a client machine here at your place, you have a server machine somewhere in US, and your client wants to access data from that server which is present in the US. On your client machine there will be something called as a socket, which is nothing but one single endpoint which will be used for communication, and on the server that is in US there will be another socket that is called as server socket. So the communication link will establish between your socket, your client socket here, and the server socket there. Right now, on the server there might be so many different applications which might be running. Your client wants to access which of the different services. So for each of this service there is something called as a port which is assigned. Port is nothing but there's a number, port number, right? So if you want to connect to a server for a particular service, then you have to connect to that particular port number which is assigned for that particular service. For example, for HTTP, the port number is 80. So your client port 80 will have to get connect to the server port 80. Okay, let's explore more about this. A socket is bound to a port number. I just said it. So you see, this is your server somewhere in US. This is your client. Now this is basically, this is called as a stack that is used for protocols. So you have physical layer, you have data link layer, you have network layer, you have transport layer, and the socket program, it actually acts between the transport layer, okay, here, okay, and the process layer here. So process is nothing but it is the user space, whereas all these layers come under something called as kernel space, operating system space. Right now, physical data transfer in zeros and ones, okay, it happens on physical layer. Then you have a data link layer, okay, the data goes further into a network layer where the data is arranged into something called as packets, and then there is a transport layer which see, basically when the data gets converted into packets in the network layer, okay, there is no reliability. There is also no assurance whether the data gets lost, and if it is lost, then will the data be resent, whether it reaches the proper destination. Okay, all this reliability is not there in the network layer. So there is a support or higher level protocol that is called as transport layer protocol that makes sure that these packets are properly arranged and they are properly sent to the destination, and then it also coordinates whether a particular packet is lost, and if it is lost, it tries to resend the packet. Right, so the transport layer protocol over here, it adds reliability to the transmission of the data, right? And your socket programming comes into play here. Fine. So this is basically a TCP/IP model, okay, TCP/IP network model of different network protocols. Fine. So we shall learn more about this. Now, socket paradigm was part of 4.2 BSD Berkeley's Unix release in somewhere 1980s, and because of this, for the sockets they use a term called as Berkeley sockets. Now sockets are basically, you should know, they are the foundation of modern networking, as a single socket. It allows a computer to serve many different clients at once, as well as to serve many different types of information. We have already spoken about it. The server would have one socket, and multiple clients can connect to that one socket and ask for different services based on different ports. It can so happen that multiple clients can connect to the same port of the server socket, okay, requesting for the same service. So for that, there has to be a multi-threading mechanism that has to be enabled on the server socket, right? Now this is accomplished through the use of port, which is numbered socket on a particular machine. A server process is set to listen to a port until a client connects to it. So what happens is, on the server, as I have told you, there is a server socket. Server socket will try to keep on listening to the port whether there are any requests. It will keep on listening to the port whether there are any requests. Once there is a request, a client request, okay, for connection, it will take the necessary action. So the server process is set to listen to a port until the client connects to it. A server is allowed to accept multiple clients connected to the same port number, although each session is unique. And to have this particular thing enabled, there has to be multi-threading mechanism enabled on the server. Okay, so this is what I was speaking about. Now, socket communication, it takes place via a protocol. Internet protocol. Okay, I think I had shown you the diagram. In that there is a layer called as network layer. Okay, you have physical layer, then you have data link layer, then you have your network layer, and it is in this network layer the protocol is nothing but these are the rules that are to be obeyed for the data that is being transmitted. Okay, so internet protocol is basically a protocol in that network layer. So it's a low level routing protocol. What this IP does, or internet protocol does, it breaks the data that is to be sent into something called as small packets, and then it sends them to the address across the network. Okay, so basically internet protocol is a protocol which is present in the network layer. Whatever data that is to be transmitted from the client to server or from server to client, that data is converted into smaller packets. Each packet has a header which determines it has come from what is the source, what is the destination, okay, and these kind of things. And then internet protocol or IP, it sends these packets across the network. Now the problem here is there is no guarantee. Okay, there is no guarantee that the packets will be delivered to the destination, because if somewhere there is a network congestion, okay, a packet might not be sent to the destination. Okay, so there is no guarantee. Internet protocol does not give you any guarantee that a packet will be delivered to the destination because of so many other things, right? Now, a higher level protocol layer which we had seen. So above the network layer you have transport layer, and in this transport layer there is a protocol that is called as transmission control protocol, or TCP. So TCP is a higher level protocol than internet protocol. Internet protocol was a lower layer. It is there in the network layer. In a higher level, you have another protocol called as transmission control protocol, or TCP. It is this protocol that will take these packets from the lower layer, the packets from the internet protocol, okay, and it manages to robustly string these packets together, and then it performs some sorting on those packets. And if any packet is not sent, then it also facilitates retransmitting of the packets as and when necessary. So TCP, it is TCP that adds reliability to the transmission of data, right? So internet protocol, it simply what it does, it breaks the data that is to be sent over the network into small packets, okay, and it sends them across the network. Then comes the transmission control protocol. So all these packets, it collects these packets, it strings these packets together based on which is the destination, and then it performs the sorting, and if required, retransmission in case of failures. Okay, so all this is done by the transmission control protocol or TCP. Okay, as a result, TCP adds reliability to the transmission of the data, which was not being guaranteed by the internet protocol. Now there is a third protocol which is called a user datagram protocol. Okay, now this is also in the transport layer. So in the transport layer you have TCP as well as you have something called as UDP. Now for transmission control protocol, this is just for your information, to establish a connection between a client and a server, there is something called as three-way handshaking. Okay, there's a three-way handshaking mechanism. Now for this three-way handshaking mechanism to get be successful, it takes considerable amount of time. Okay, in many cases where you want a super fast communication to be done, okay, then people go for the second type of protocol, that is called as UDP or user datagram protocol. Okay, now so this UDP, it is basically connectionless and it is fast, but the problem is TCP guarantees you reliability of the transmission of data, whereas UDP, it is unreliable transport of the packets. So if the packet may or may not reach a particular destination. Only thing is that people use this UDP if they want a connectionless and a very fast transmission, right? And where the reliability is not so important. But where the reliability is very important, then people will use TCP, right? So in Java, in networking in Java, we are going to ultimately see in this full chapter how the data can be transmitted from a client to server, or the cross communication between client server and then server to client, two-way communication. Now while doing this communication, we will either take the help of TCP or we will take the help of UDP, right? So we will see two different programs, how transmission is done with the help of TCP, and then at the end of this chapter we shall see how the transmission can be done with the help of UDP. Now once a connection has been established, that means once a client and server, their sockets, their connection has been established between the sockets. Now a higher level protocol ensures which is dependent on which port you are using. Now TCP IP, it reserves the lower 1024 ports for specific protocols. Now what is this TCP IP I was talking about? TCP IP is the stack, the figure which I had just shown you. Okay, you had seen that stack, TCP IP stack. It starts with the physical layer, then the data link layer, then the network layer, then the transport layer. Transport layer, your sockets will, the socket communication that we are going to see here, it will happen at the transport layer, and then you have your process layer, right? So that model is called as TCP IP stack. So this TCP IP stack, it reserves the lower 1024 ports for some specific protocols. Okay, for example, on a server, port number 21 is used for file transfer protocol service. Port number 23 is used for telnet. Port number 25 is used for email service. Port number 43 is used for whois service. Port number 80 is used for HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, and port number 119 is used for net news. Out of this, since we are talking about client server communication, we'll be using this port number 80, that is for HTTP transfer, hypertext transfer protocol. It is up to each protocol to determine how a client should interact with each port. Now this is a basic communication diagram that I have shown you for HTTP protocol, because it is HTTP protocol that web browsers and web servers, they will use to transfer hypertext pages and images. That means whenever you have hypertext pages and images, web pages with images and all, okay, so the communication between the web browser and the server that happens, it usually happens using HTTP protocol. Okay, now let us explore more. Now it's a quite simple protocol for basic page browsing web server. Now how the communication takes place between client and the server. So this is your client machine. Okay, suppose you want to access a particular website, so you type the address here. Now your client establishes a connection to the server, right? Once the server and client connection is established, basically the server has to accept that connection request, otherwise the connection cannot be established. So client sends for a connection, okay, so connection request, then the server will have to accept the connection. So once this connection is established, then what happens is client will request for a particular file from the server. Now server will do what? Once that request for a particular file comes to the server, server will search for the file, and in response it will send the file back to the client. Once the file is requested and once the file is sent back, okay, it closes down the connection. So this is called as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, connection is established. After establishing the connection, we request for a file. After responding for a file, HTTP connection is closed. Right? So this is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and this is how client-server communication takes place when HTTP protocol is used. Now, so I'll just recapitulate what I said. So when a client requests for a file from HTTP server, which is called as a HIT action, it simply sends the name of the file in a special format to a predefined port, and it reads back the content of the file. The server also responds with a status code to tell the client whether or not the request can be fulfilled, and if not, why. Now, this is the next concept that is very important as far as networking is concerned. The key component of internet is basically address. Every computer on internet has one address. An internet address is basically a number that uniquely identifies each computer on the internet. Originally, all the internet addresses, they consisted of 32-bit values organized as 4 8-bit values. Now this type of address was specified by IPv4 or Internet Protocol version 4. However, we have now got a new addressing scheme which is called as IP version 6 or Internet Protocol version 6. IP version 6, it uses 128-bit value to represent the address of a computer on the internet, and this address is organized into 8 16-bit chunks. So although there are several reasons for advantages to IP version 6, see, the main advantage of using IP version 6 over IP version 4 is that IP version 6, since it uses 128-bit value to represent address, it supports much larger address space than what was supported by IP version 4. Now, you don't have to get confused between IP version 6, IP version 4, because your Java, okay, it handles both these versions for you. So you don't have to worry whether you are working on IP version 6 or IP version 4, because your Java is going to handle it internally for you. So you don't have to bother about it. The name of an internet address is called as a domain name, and this domain name, it describes the machine's location in the namespace. For example, I have a website www.mywebsite.com. Here, .com here, this is called as top level domain. It is basically reserved for US commercial sites. Com for commercial. So it's a top level domain. Then my website, okay, it's basically the name, right? And www, it identifies the server for the web requests. The internet domain is mapped to an IP address by something called as domain naming service. Okay, so the domain name is mapped to an IP address by a service called as DNS or domain name service. So this enables the user to work with the domain names, but the internet operates on IP addresses. Basically what happens, each server will have some IP address. It will be very difficult for a client to remember the IP address of every server that it wants to connect. So better, instead of remembering the numbers or the IP addresses in terms of numbers, why not remember the server with the name? For example, yahoo.com, is a server, it will have some IP address, but you are remembering that with respect to the name, domain name, and so on, right? The networking classes and interfaces in Java. Now Java supports TCP/IP in two ways. Okay, one, it uses this stream IO interface. Okay, during the file IO. Okay, during the file IO chapter, there is a context of something called as stream IO interface. So it uses that, and it also builds upon it by adding features required to build IO objects across the network. Java supports both TCP and UDP protocol families. As we have already seen, what is TCP? TCP is used for reliable stream-based IO across network, whereas UDP is a simpler, faster, point-to-point datagram-oriented model, but it is not reliable compared to TCP. So we are going to see the communication between client and server using socket programming. We are going to see this using TCP as well as using UDP protocols. Now let us see what are the different classes that are contained in Java.NET package. So these are the classes which are there in Java.NET package. Of course, we are not going to use all the classes. Authenticator, cache request, cache response, content handler, cookie manager. Now we are going to use datagram packet and datagram socket. These two are going to be used for client server interaction while using UDP. Okay. So in UDP, the socket on the client, okay, it is called as datagram socket. Datagram packet, and the other one is called as datagram socket. Okay. Then you have datagram socket implementation, HTTP cookie. We are also going to see this HTTP URL connection. What is it? Right? We are going to see INET4 address. We are going to see INET6 address class. In general, we are also going to see a program on INET address class. Then INET socket address is there, interface address is there, and so on. And we are going to see two important concepts, that is called as socket. This class represents the socket on the client, and server socket class represents the server on the socket. So for TCP connection, we are going to use these two classes, objects of these two classes called as socket and server socket. Whereas for UDP connection, we are going to use datagram packet and datagram socket. Apart from this, you are going to see what is URL. You are going to see URL connection class and so on. Okay. Now let us see a few whatever are the interfaces which are present in Java.NET packages. So these are all the interfaces which are present in Java.NET package. Let's start with INET address class. Okay. Now this INET address class, it is basically used to encapsulate both the numerical IP address and the domain name for that address. So INET address class, basically what it does, I just told you that every machine on the network has a unique address, right? It's a numerical IP address, but for remembering it, okay, you have a corresponding domain name also. Now INET address class, what it does for a particular machine, it encapsulates both things together, its numerical IP address as well as its domain name. So this is that class. INET address can handle both IP version 6 and IP version 4 addresses. Now please note that INET address class, it has no visible constructors. There are no visible constructors. Then how does an object gets created? So to create an INET address object, you have to use one of the available factory methods. Now before going to this, what is a factory method? Factory methods are, these are the static methods in a class which returns an instance of that class. Okay. Now three commonly used INET address factory methods which we are also going to use are, one is get localhost, and if the localhost is not known, then it throws an exception, unknown host exception. Second one, get by name, where you have to specify the host name. Here also, if the host is not determined, it throws an exception called as unknown host exception. And third is get all by name. Okay, note that this is the array of objects that it is going to return, okay, and it throws unknown host exception if the host cannot be determined. Okay, let us see in detail each of these methods. First method is get localhost method. It returns the inet address object that represents the local host. Get by name method, it returns inet address for a host name that is passed to it. And get all by name method is basically used for what? So there's a convention on internet, okay, sometimes you can use a single name to represent several machines. So you have a network, so you can use one name to represent all the machines on that particular network. This concept can be used on internet. So the factory method that is called as get all by name, this method, it returns an array of inet addresses that represent all the addresses that a particular name resolves to. And there is another method called as get by address. It takes an IP address and returns an inet address object. This is a small code, okay, just to show you the working of inet address class. Okay, now please note, if you want to use any of these networking classes, you have to import java.net package. Now this is a demo for inet address. Okay, now first what I have done is I have created an object called as address of inet address, and using the class name I am calling the factory method called as get localhost. Okay, so get localhost method, ultimately then I am printing localhost name is address. So get localhost method, what it does, it returns the name of the local host. Okay, so you see this is the name that is returned. Now my computer, the one which I am using, its localhost name is desktop ATJ8N S3. So this is the name, and this is the corresponding IP of my machine, that is 192.168.0.186. Okay, so get localhost gets you the name and the address of your local host. Then the next method that I have used, get by name. Okay, so I want to get by name, and the string that I have entered inside is www.dbcegoa.ac.in, right? So when I do this, okay, when I try to print this, what it will print is, it will print www.dbcegoa.ac.in. This is the domain name, and this is the corresponding IP 162.214.80.61. Third, I told you that get all by name, it is used to return the addresses of all the computers which are connected by a single name. Okay, so the name here is nba.com. So just to see how many computers or how many addresses are linked, how many machines are linked to this name, okay, I've created here an array SW, and then so basically it's going to return into this array all those IP addresses which have the common name called as nba.com. Okay, and then how to print, I'm just printing it like this in a for loop. Okay, so www.nba.com. Now here there is only one IP address that is shown, that is 23.58.36.64. So this is how you can make use of inet address class. So as you can see, inet address class, what it does, it binds together both the things. See, for every result, it first shows you the domain name and then it shows the IP address. So domain name and IP address both are bound together by inet address class. Okay, next we will see some of the instance methods of inet address. Now the inet address class, it has several other methods which can be used on the object written by the methods. Let's see some common methods. One is equals method. Okay, it returns a boolean value. So this equals method returns true if the object has the same internet address as the other. Then second, get address method, which returns a byte array. So it returns a byte array that represents object's IP address in a network byte order. Similarly, get host address, it returns the string that represents the host address associated with the inet address. Get host name, it returns a string that represents the host name associated with inet address object. Is multicast address, it's a boolean method. It returns boolean value. It returns true if the address is multicast address, and otherwise it returns false. And finally, there is a method called as toString method that lists the host name and the IP address for convenience. Okay, so in later on in some method in some programs you can use these methods. You have to just remember these methods. Let's go for a class called as inet4 address class and inet6 address class. Now, as I have told you, Java includes support for IP version 6 as well as IP version 4 addresses, right? Now, because of this, the two subclasses of inet addresses were created. We have already seen inet address class. So, for this inet address class, there were two subclasses that were created. That one subclass is inet4 address and second subclass is inet6 address. inet4 address represents traditional style IP version 4, and inet6 address, it encapsulates a newer, that is IP version 6 address. Now, because they are subclasses of inet address, the inet address reference can either refer to inet4 or IP version 4 or IP version 6 address. This is one way that Java was able to add IP version 6 functionality without breaking the existing code or adding many more classes. So tomorrow a new version comes that again will be created as a subclass of this inet address. So instead of using a specific inet4 address class or a specific inet6 address class, if you just use a superclass that is called as inet address, it's okay for you. It will Java will resolve the versioning issue. Okay, so for the most part you can simply use inet address when working with IP addresses because it can accommodate both these styles, and suppose there are new styles coming in future, those also will be accommodated. So user can simply use inet address class itself, no need to use inet4 address class and inet6 address class specifically. Now this is a TCP IP client server socket communication model. Okay, so this is your client, and let's say your client wants to transmit some data to the server. So this is the socket, client socket, and this is the server socket. Now server socket, it has a bind and a listen method. So what server socket does is it starts continuously listening. So it opens the listen method, and server socket, it continuously starts listening for any client's request that can come to it, right? So server, it will constantly start listening, continuously start listening to any request that comes from any clients. Now this is my client socket. So client socket, okay, it opens client by sending the connect request. It calls the connect method. So connect method, using connect method, your client is trying to connect to the server. So it sends the connection request to the server using connect method. Now server can accept this request or reject this request. Okay, there is a method in the server called as accept method. In server socket, there is a method called as accept method that if the server calls, it means that it has accepted the connection. Now once the connection request is accepted by the server, the connection accepted by the server, now there can be client server interaction or session that is possible. So once the connection request is accepted by the server, next what will happen? Client can now write data onto the server. Server will read that data. Server can write some data on the client. Client can read the data, and this can just go on. So it's a loop. So this way a client can send some data to the server. Server can send data back to the client, and this can go on. So this is a session. Now once read write is over, a client can call the close method because this means that there is nothing more I have to send to the server. Okay, so once the close method is invoked by the client, it is nothing but end of the file which has reached. So now when the server reads this end of the file, it knows that okay, client wants to break the communication, so it closes the communication between the client. Then suppose client wants to send another data, again client can send the connect request here. Once server gets accepts it, okay, it can again do this. Once the connection is closed, again it will start listening, and once the connection request comes, if server wants to again accept, it will call the accept method, otherwise it can reject. So this communication will go on. This is called a TCP/IP client server socket communication. Now Java socket programming is used for communication between the applications which are running on different JREs. Java socket programming can be either connection oriented or connectionless. Connection oriented if you are using TCP/IP, if you are using TCP, that is transmission control protocol, and connectionless if you are using user datagram protocol or UDP. Now socket and server socket classes are used for connection oriented socket programming. So as you can see here, the client socket, for this in Java there is a class called as socket, and for this server socket there is a class in Java called as server socket that we are going to use if we are going to use transmission control protocol for transmission, TCP. Now instead of TCP, if you want to use UDP, then you can use datagram socket and datagram packet classes for connectionless programming, socket programming. Okay, this is used when UDP is going to be used. Now the client in the socket, the client in socket programming, the client must know two information elements. Okay, the client socket, it should know two information elements. One, the IP address of the server that it wants to connect, and second, what is the port number of that server where I want to connect. So two things are required for the client socket to establish the connection. One is the IP address of the server, and second, what is the port number of the server for the service that it wants to request. Let's go ahead and see the socket class. A socket is simply an endpoint of communications between the machines, as we have already spoken about. Socket class can be used to create a socket, that's a client socket. Now there are some important methods in the socket class. You have get input stream method. This method returns the input stream attached with the socket. There is another method called as get output stream method, which returns output stream attached with this socket. And there is a method called as close, which closes this particular socket. Okay, so basically these two methods are used for reading and writing the data to and from the server, whereas this method is used to close the link or connection link that has been established between the client and that server. Let's go for the server socket class. The server socket class can be used to create a server socket. This object is used to establish communication with the client machines. Let's see important methods in server socket class. We are going to see two very important methods. One is called as accept method. Now note that this accept method, okay, it returns the socket and establishes a connection between the server and the client. So if the server wants to establish connection, it will call this accept method, otherwise no. And second is a close method. This is used to close the server socket. Now let us go ahead and see an example of TCP/IP socket communication. So what I have done is I have created a file. Okay, I have created a folder, project folder, and I have created a file called as myserver.java. Okay, now this is that myserver.java file. Okay, similarly I will be also creating another file called as myclient.java. So myserver.java will have code for the server socket, for the communication end from the server side, and myclient.java file will have the details, the communication details with respect to the client machine. Okay, so let us see the code in detail. The very first thing is, since we are going to use these sockets and all, okay, you have to import java.net. Okay, java.net houses all these sockets and all this internet programming or networking related classes. Also, I have mentioned that for reading the data and for writing the data to and from the server, we are going to use the data input streams. Okay, so basically data input streams are part of java.io. So that class also, that package also we have to import. Okay, now let us see the code. So I'm writing a try block here. Okay, now as I have already spoken about, while communicating to the server, there could be some exception. So there has to be exception handling. So all the code I am writing in this try block, and catch block is going to catch any exception that occurs. Okay. So let's go ahead and see. The very first thing that you can see here is at server socket is created by specifying the port number, that is 6666. So I am creating an object SS of server socket, and I am specifying the port number 6666, which means that you are telling the clients that want to connect this particular server, you are telling those clients that if you want to connect to me for a particular service, you connect on this particular port, 6666 port. So first thing is we have created an object of server socket, and we are passing the port number that clients can use to connect. So clients will use this port number to connect for a particular service. Next, as I've already spoken about, okay, once the connection, and see after this, after this point, your server socket, it will continuously keep on listening. Now the server socket starts listening for any client request. Now let's say there is a client request coming from a client socket. So upon the request from the client socket, it calls the accept method to establish the connection with the requesting client. So now let's see, once the client socket sends a connection request, now what happens? You are creating an object S of the socket class. Okay, you are creating an object S of the socket class. This is a client socket, and you are saying ss.accept. That means server socket is accepting the client socket's connection request. So server socket has been created, and you have specified the port number that client can use to connect. Now let's say if the client request comes, so that's why I have created object S of the socket class. Socket class refers to the client socket. Okay, socket S equal to, and now here ss.accept, that means the server socket is calling the accept method, and after calling the accept method, it has agreed to establish a connection between this socket. So this is how a socket and the server socket, they are connected. Fine. Next, the object of data input string. Now basically what my server will do is, server will read the data that is sent by the client. Client has sent some data message, server has to read. So what we do, we create object of data input stream, which is for reading the input. I call it as DIS. So you see data input stream DIS is the object created equal to new data input stream, and s.get input stream method is called within this. Then now whatever the client is going to send, okay, it will be read by the server using this method called as read UTF method. Okay, read UTF method. The data input string object dot read UTF method, this will be used to read the data that is sent. Again, the data that is sent, I am going to typecast it to string because I need to read the text data. So I am going to typecast it to string, and that data I am going to store in a variable called as str. Further, it finally prints the message that is sent by the client. So then it simply prints the message, which is nothing but the string that is stored in str, which is read by the server using read UTF method. Okay, and once the message is printed, finally server socket closes the connection after successful reception of the message. If there are any exceptions that are generated, then there is a catch block. There's a catch block that will handle the exception. Now let's see the client code. So my client.java is another program that I've written. Here also, since reading writing is involved, I'm using import java.io.star, and since networking related classes are used, I'm using java.net. So these two classes has to be used. Now the very first thing is, I told you the socket, the client socket, okay, it takes two things into consideration. One is the IP address of the server that you want to connect, and second is the port number of that particular server. So first thing what we do is, see here, I create object of the socket, this is a client socket, and I pass two values. One is the IP address, I want to connect to the localhost server, and its port is 6666. Okay, so this is the port and this is the name of the server. So IP address of the server and the port number of the server it needs to communicate with. Right? Next, it then creates an object dout of the data output stream. Why? Because in this program, my client will write some message onto the server, and server is only going to print that message. Server is not going to send any message back. In this particular example program, what I have done is, server is going to listen for any message that comes from client once the connection is established, and once the client sends the message, server is only going to print that message. That's it. The two-way communication is not going to occur in this program. So as a result here, since client is going to send some message to the server, I have created data output string object called as dout, and then using dout, I am using this function called as write UTF. Write UTF is basically used to write the data onto the server, and it is writing the message called as hello server onto the server. Right? And now, okay, let's say it writes hello world or hello server, whatever message it writes, okay, and it sends to the server. After this, it has to flush the data output string, so that's why I have written dout.flush, and then it closes the data output stream, dout.close. Fine. And finally, upon successful communication, it closes the socket, okay, using s.close method. Any exception generated will be handled by the catch block. Fine. So now how are we going to run such outputs? There are two programs now, and since it's a communication, both programs have to be run parallelly. So how, in such cases, how do we run these programs on our computer? So you have to open two command prompts simultaneously. Okay. Now compile my client.java and my server on .java on each of these command prompts separately. Compile them separately. Okay. Now see, as per the convention, the server will start listening. So you have to run server first. You have to run the my server.java file first. You have to run it first, and then you can run the client file. Okay, so you first run my server file using Java interpreter, so that server is up and starts listening for the client request. And lastly, you run now the my client file using the Java interpreter. And once you run my client, you will see that the hello world message or hello server, whatever message which is sent from the client program is being printed on the server screen. So this is the output. So I have opened two command prompts. Okay, you see here, first what I have done is I have first using Java C. Okay, I have first compiled my server.java. Then I came to the second prompt, and using Java C I have compiled my client.java. Compiled both. Then you run the server first. So how to execute the file? You say Java my server. You execute this first. So after executing this, it will not see the message yet. It will wait. Then once you execute Java my client, once you execute this my client.java, then you will immediately see this message being printed here. And that's it. Okay, so let us see this example. I have created two files. This is my client file. Okay, so my client here, it sends a message. I have already explained you the code. So hello world is the message that the client will send to the server. So the program name is myclient.java. Fine. And my server is the second Java program that I have written, which accepts the connection, and after that it simply reads using read UTF. It will read the message that is sent by the client, which is called as hello world message, stores it in str, and it will print the string str, and then it closes the connection. Okay, so let's run these two and let's see how I'm in the E drive in that particular folder, project folder. I'm first going to compile the my server file. So I'll say Java C my server dot Java. Now I'm going to compile my client.java. So I'll say Java C my client, my client dot Java. Okay, and now don't make sure, see, server has to be running first, and only then client can connect to it. So because of that convention, after compiling my client and my server, make sure that now you execute my server file first and only then go for my client. So I'm going to execute my server now. I'll say Java my server. Okay, and now this happens. Just see, there's nothing happening. So that means the server is now the server socket is now listening. You can see this prompt here. Nothing has been printed. That means server is now running. Server is up. Server is running, and server socket is now listening, trying to listen for any request. Okay, now I'm going to execute this particular client program so that the connection request goes to the server, and the after the connection is accepted, the remaining thing, the message is sent to the server. Okay, so now I execute. I'll say Java my client, and now once this happens, the connection establishes, and see, you see here message hello world. So what has happened? The client, once client is being executed, client has established connection with the server, and it has sent the message, and that message is printed on the server, hello world. Okay, so this is a simple demo just to show you how one-way communication can be established. Now let us see, the last thing for this lecture is, let us see how two-way communications can be made between client and the server. Okay, so again, see, this is my client. I have modified the same program here. So you see, first I'm creating a socket. So this is my client program first. I'm creating a socket for the client. The IP address of the server is localhost. The port number here is 3333. Now since reading as well as writing will be done by client as well as server, I am using both, that is data input stream and data output stream object, and D in and D out. Okay, now since the data has to be read, I am using buffer reader class. Okay, and I need to print, that's why I am using two strings, str and str2, two string variables I have used. So now while, you remember there is a method that we had seen called as equals. Okay, so I am saying while not str dot equals stop. So unless and until you type stop message, this while loop will not stop. So while not str dot equals stop, that means while the string str is not equal stop, unless and until you don't type a message called as stop, this will continue. What will continue? First, it will read. So str equal to br dot readline. Okay, so whatever you type from the keyboard, readline method is going to read it into the str. So what is br here? Br dot readline. Br is the buffer reader. I've used buffer reader because I'm going to type something from the keyboard. So client will do what? Client will type something from the keyboard that will be stored in str. Now the thing that I have typed, this thing should go to the server. Okay, so then using dout object, that is data output stream object, that same string, okay, using write UTF, the client is writing this string onto the server. So that's how whatever you type from your keyboard, it is passed on to the server. Now once it is passed on to the server, I am immediately flushing the output stream. This is very important. Okay, so after writing the data onto the, so whatever I type from the keyboard, that I am storing in str, then that str data that I have typed from the keyboard, I have to send this to the server, right? So using write UTF, I am sending it to the server, and then I am flushing the dout string. Second, now server will read that message and server will send some reply, right? So str to the second string, in which data input stream I am using to read the data that is sent by the server using read UTF. So read UTF will read the message that is sent by the server to my client. Okay, it will be stored in str2, and then it simply prints server says whatever message server has sent, right? So this will go on repeating. So unless and until on client you don't write stop, this communication will continue. Once you type stop, what will happen? It will first close the output stream, and then it will close the client socket. So this is the program for the client machine. Now let's see the program for the server machine for two-way communication. Again, see the same import statements I've used. Now I am creating a server socket. Again, the port number that I am specifying is 3333. Server says that if any client wants to connect me for communication, you have to communicate through this port 3333. So in the previous program also, for client program also, I have specified the same port number. Now, first thing is, using accept method, the server socket is going to accept the connection request from the client socket, that is S. So socket S equal to ss.accept. So S is the client socket and ss.accept establishes connection to the client socket. Okay. Now again, see, server is going to read as well as write. So I am using objects of data input stream as well as data output stream. Also, on the server you will be typing out some data from the keyboard. So I use buffer reader for that. And again, here the code will be almost same. I use two strings, str and str2. So while you don't type stop command on the server, these things will continue. First, it is going to read din.read. So it is going to read the data that is sent by the client into str. And after reading the data that is sent by the client, it will print on the screen that client says this particular message. Now once the message from the client is read, now it is going to write its own message. So from the keyboard, okay, whatever the person sitting on the server, whatever it types, that will be stored in str2. And then using the data output object, using writeUtf method, that string will be passed onto the client. It will be written on the client, and this output stream will be flushed. So this will go on till you type the stop message. Finally, din close will be called. Okay, that means input stream will be closed, and then server and client sockets both will be closed. Okay, I will execute everything and together and show. This is the same code. This is my client program. The same code I've written, and this is the program for my server. Okay, my client and my server. Yes. Now I'll just copy this link, and I will now show you the program live. So very first thing is I'm going to compile my client.java and my server.java file. So I'll compile it in the first prompt. So I'll say javac my server.java. So I've compiled my server. Now I'll compile the second program, that is my client.java. Okay, I'll say javac my client.java. Okay, I'll just clear the screen. So that means my client and my server both are compiled. Now I have to run the server first. So I'll say java my server. Okay, so as you can see, now the server has started listening. So now client has to establish connection. So I will execute client now. I'll say java my client. Now client and server both can send messages. So let's say client sends the first message, hi. So the moment I type hi here on the server it says client says hi. So I can type message here. The server can type message now so that it can be sent back to the client. So I say how are you. Okay, so then here on client it appears, server says how are you. Then here I will type I am fine. Okay, happy New Year. The client sends it to the server now. So client says I am fine, happy New Year. Same to you, dear. So this is how server says same to you, dear. So this is how the communications going on. Now this will go on. You have seen in the code the while loop. So unless and until you type stop message, this will not stop. So now what I do, this is server, right? So first client says stop. Anybody can say stop. So I'll say stop. Fine. And now the server says stop. So once the server says stop, the client server connection is totally when both the parties say stop, the client server connection is disconnected, the communication is exited. So this is a simple example of how two-way communication between the client and server using socket programming and using TCP, transmission control protocol, which is connection oriented and which is reliable, happens in Java. So that is it for today's lecture. Thank you.